Melee at Zamorak has quickly become one of my favorite methods for killing this boss. And today I'm going to be showing you exactly how I do that. If you end up finding this guide helpful, leave a like on the video and comment down below. Or if you have questions at the end of the guide, feel free to leave them in the comments below. If you want to go above and beyond, channel memberships and super thanks are enabled. But with all that being said, let's get straight into this guide. As far as the worn equipment and inventory is concerned, this is a relatively straightforward inventory and worn equipment. I do run the full 4-pieced vestments armor set. It is best in slot for melee by a country mile. Has some really nice set effects for extending berserk, adrenaline usage and gain, extra adrenaline on the top end. There's a lot of really nice effects here. And the perks that I have on here are C4R5 Impatient for mobile. Yes, mobile is now good on melee gear. Ever since the combat update happened, you are no longer penalized for barge adrenaline when having mobile on your armor, as well as bladed dives, so feel free to stick it on there. You can now surge in peace. And on the robe bottom I have Biting for Hoarding. This is a leftover combo from the old Death Cost era. Honestly, you can replace this with whatever combo you want. If you want to put Biting for Mobile on here and then add in something like Devoted 4 with the Impatient, feel free. And Enhanced Devoted 4 is just overall nice. There's no Slayer benefits or any type of task benefits you're going to get from doing Zamorak, so just go ahead and use Enhanced Devoted. Zamorak is not poisonable, so I'm just using Enhanced Glove of Passage. They give a nice strength bonus. They have a nice effect for bleed damage, so it is helpful when you're dealing with the gray bar and you're about to go into the Infernus. It'll have your Dismember doing a little bit extra damage. Very nice to have. I personally use Grim for the crit chance. You might be able to get away with full Scripture, however, I think that might make a lot of these skips on mechanics a little bit more RNG based. I haven't experimented with it. Grim has been very consistent for me, and I would recommend using Grim. I do just go ahead and use Lang Swords, and they have standard perks on them: Precise 6 Aftershock 1, and then Aftershock 4 Eruptive 2. I run Champion's Ring here because I typically run Majorat Aura over Berserk, and if you run Reaver's Ring, you can run into potential issues with splashing. Now, yes, you cannot splash in this current combat update, but your damage will be reduced if you're not 100% accurate. So I just run Champion's Ring, plus the extra crit strike damage is nice, and Bled Assaults or Bled Flurries or Destroys, anything like that. If you're doing a Barge Bleed ability, this will count for the Champ Ring effect, as well as if you get like an Armor Spike proc or something like that. Zuck Cape is pretty self-explanatory. If you have the standard melee Zuck Cape, that's going to work just fine, but you just want the buffed Overpower, as it is very, very strong. As far as the inventory is concerned, I just run Super Sarah Brews and Blue Blubbers as far as food. It's pretty straightforward. The Portents of Restoration here are pretty nice. They proc independently. You don't have to worry about them or consume them or do anything with them for that matter. And they heal 2300, so if you have extra inventory spaces in a preset in general, just feel free to toss these in somewhere. The only weapon switches I bring are a physical EZK, and that is for Cleave and Hurricane. As far as the EOFs are concerned, I use a Dragon Dagger EOF and a D-Claw EOF. Only 2 EOFs, but they're the only 2 you need. I was using Dragon Longsword for the longest time, if y'all remember the 300% guide I did. However, I was finding D-Long to be slightly less consistent, so I replaced it with Dragon Dagger. They are the same adrenaline cost and do pretty much the same damage, but I noticed DDS will go ahead and hit those damage numbers more consistently, and that's the name of the game when doing Zamorak. You just want to build as much consistency as possible. Other than that, I just have a Blessed Flask for prayer. I have a Vit Pot for P7, some Vuln Bombs for extra damage. I do bring Lucky Charms just for some extra RNG on the witches when you kill them. If you don't care about that, you could easily sub this out for something else. Adrenaline Renewal Flask is overkill here. You could just bring a 4-dose instead, but I do like the Adrenaline Renewal itself. That part is important. And I do bring a spare Overload just in case the kill goes a little bit sideways and I need to re-overload, or if I forgot to re-overload at the bank, which sometimes happens. And the rune pouches here are just for Disrupt Shield. You can use Vengeance and it hits very nicely at Zam. However, I pretty much always forget to press Venge, so I personally don't use it, but Disrupt Shield is the main thing you want, and there's no real need to sit on Ancients for any of those spells, so just run the Lunar Spellbook. Now, some notable keybinds that you may not have normally, but would definitely want to have for Zamorak to make your life life a little bit easier is having your disrupt shield and your vitpot keybound next to each other. I have it on U and I, so I can just roll the two after I barge in on P7, and it makes life very simple. Have divert somewhere that's accessible. It's very nice throughout the kill, and obviously have your EOFs accessible. If you want to click your EOFs, that's perfectly fine. And obviously Chaos Roar is a very strong ability. You're going to want to have that bound somewhere, although you kind of have Chaos Roar bound anywhere for any boss because it's really strong, but I digress. And honestly, that's about it as far as the gear and some notable keybinds are concerned. As far as relics and stuff from the bank preset here are concerned, I use Lantidime sticks, I use Spirit Weed incense sticks, I do go ahead and use an Ogre thermal flask, and I use a Hellhound familiar. The damage reduction from this is pretty nice. I have done kills on Calg and it was doable. However, if I'm not paying attention or I'm on stream and I'm chatting with someone, I have been shoved into the dirt a few times just because I was using Calg. Overall, I would recommend learning with Hellhound. If you want to use Blood Reaver, go for it. It's going to be more of a passive heal. I personally prefer using Hellhound because when I'm zerked, it kind of takes the edge off of the hits that he's doing to you, but there is a decent amount of freedom on picking the familiar you want to bring. Some people even bring Ripper Demon for more damage, but again, it's totally up to you. I do use Powder of Penance here. You take quite a bit of damage, and honestly, you could probably skip the Blessed Flask. It's mostly there in the inventory because I'll forget to use these from time to time. Like I mentioned before, I'm on the Lunar Spellbook, and for relics, I am on Zerk Fury, Conservation of Energy, and Font of Life. The Adrenaline refund here pretty much makes up for not having Fury the Small here, and you're going to be on varying degrees of low health and also healing up throughout the fight. So getting extra damage from Zerk Fury is going to be very advantageous, especially on P7 where you're probably going to be about half HP anyways. So it is very much worthwhile to run this. And I think that's enough talking. Let's just go ahead and get into a kill. Alrighty, let's go ahead and do a kill. Make sure you have full adrenaline before you head through the boss portal. Go ahead and use the ladder here. We can now use custom and rage, which is nice. You can just press use last custom or use last in rage or whatever it says there, and then right click the chest, teleport, and go to Zammy. If you don't have the skip, I think it only takes one full dungeon run now to get the skip unlocked, so feel free to do that. And then for all of these witches, I start over here by pad 1 or circle 1, and then kill up to 3, and then BD over to 6 and come back to 5 and 4, so that way I can start on pad 4. And if I didn't mention this earlier in the video, the pad order I'm going to be using is 4, 2, 1, 6, 5, 3. It's a pretty old order, but I found it to work very nicely for melee kills, so let's go ahead and get right into it. So here, I'm just going to use basic abilities and try and build up some of the passive Lang spec stacks, the primordial ice stacks, or whatever they're called. I'll just go through and kill them with just basic abilities. Then there's number 3. And then what I'll do for this one is I'll actually hit Meteor as I'm running over. Pop back to my two-hander and try and hit an ability in between so I get some extra adrenaline. Dive over to number 6 over here, use a couple basics. And then if you're kind of low on adrenaline, if you've really been killing them, you can G-Fury this last one. You get the adrenaline you need, but then surge up over to this tile here. Zerk, divert, toss your Vuln Bomb, target cycle Barge, Chaos Roar into an Overpower. Bleed the Flurry, don't forget your A-Pot like I did. Go ahead and use a D-Claw and a second D-Claw, maybe a G-Fury to get some crits out. A couple more D-Claws and he should be phased. There he is. Use a couple of basics. I'm going to go ahead and hit my Lang spec while I'm under Zerk still. And then just go for a Hurricane. We're at 30k. As long as he's about 35k when you go into the Infernus, you should be fine. But I always like to leave a Dismember on him when going in. And then as I'm going in, I'll anticipate Surge, Barge on the Witch, and Bleed a Flurry to help with the Zerk cooldown. And just use basic abilities to kill said Witch. Teleport back. I'll go ahead and use another Dismember just for funsies. Surge Bladed Dive over to this area, come up to this tile, hit Zerk, hit Divert, toss another Vuln Bomb, Barge, do a couple basics here just to help get rid of the last bit of HP, bleed the Flurry, and then hit a couple D-Claw EOFs. There, if you're low adren, you can hit a DDS spec, and we've already phased him here, so we can go ahead and go for a Chaos Roar into an Overpower, a basic, and then do our bleed. Anticipate, go into the Infernus, Surge, Barge, kind of rinse repeat from the previous Witch kill. Just bleed, Flurry, and do some basics. Zerk cooldown is going to be kind of the thing that limits you in the phase 1, 2, and 3 area. But then once it's back off cooldown, or sometimes I'll wait here for Zerk to come back to off cooldown. Words are difficult, but I'll Zerk here, hit divert, and then just barge, double basic with a Vuln Bomb. And then bleed the Flurry. And I'm going to go ahead and hit a G Fury just because I can. Don't have the Adren for Claw, so I can hit DDS. I'll go for another Claw. Look at the HP. And then here I'm not going to have Chaos Roar, so I'll usually go for an Overpower into a Lang Spec, and that usually wipes it out because you'll have the stacks built up in time from all the D-Claw spam, and then just rinse repeat on the Witch, making sure you got your Dismember out on the Zammy before you go in, because as you can see, it keeps his HP down nicely. And then I go ahead and hit another Dismember, another Havoc, and then make the long, arduous journey all the way over to pad number 6 and stand on this tile right here. And then I'll just go ahead and wait for him to come over. When he gets to about there, that's when I Zerk, divert, and then hit barge. Again, a couple of basic abilities. You can make the second one a G Fury to make your Flurry hit crit a little better. Got a Relent proc there on our D-Claw, so we can do 2 there. It's about 3 D-Claws, sometimes a bit more in order to get through a phase. But then on the gray bar, just like we did before, go ahead and use your Chaos Roar with an Overpower to get most of that HP out. And as long as he's about 30k, you'll be just fine for starting the next pad. Again, on this minion, we're going to go ahead and bleed a Flurry, use some basic abilities to build up Adrenaline. And it is usually a better idea to eat to full after pad 6 before starting a new pad, because you want to get the most out of your heal. Now, something I like to do a little bit different here is get a divert on the first hit, not the second hit. Barge, do a basic, and then hit reflect. And then bleed my Flurry. Use a basic and a couple D-Claws, but it just helps mitigate a lot of the damage that you're going to be taking throughout the last couple phases. And then once he's phased, after some D-Claw spam, go ahead and use a Chaos Roar into a Overpower again. Toss your Dismember on him. He should be about 30k. Rinse and repeat, just like we have done before. Also, now would be a good time to go ahead and heal your Hellhound. That's another bind you probably should have, is some type of keybind for activating your Hellhound spec. And then here I'll anticipate, run over the pad, press a Zerk, get my divert, Vuln Bomb, and barge, and then I hit reflect and a basic, and bleed the Flurry. Now here what I like to do is hit some type of basic, and then do a D-Claw, and then here I will not D-Claw spam again. I will hit Overpower and Lang Spec, and then punish. And that should get him to phase while keeping you on very high adrenaline. High adrenaline for this upcoming part is very important. You can also spam anticipate to get a little bit extra, but then barge this guy, the Chaos Demon, bleed a Flurry, and use a Meteor. Come over to Zammy to start building up some more adrenaline. And then we just go ahead and Surge, Bladed Dive to the rune we got, and then Zerk. And then we're just going to use basics. Should only take a couple basics per rune. And then here we're going to hit Devotion into a Reflect, Surge and Barge, bleed the Assault, Disrupt Shield, Vitpot, Chaos Roar, hit the Claw, hit another Claw, maybe an Overpower into a DDS, and he should be dead. Didn't even need the DDS there. And as you can see, this is a pretty straightforward method. There's a lot of nuance to it as far as timing things and getting used to your positioning. But overall, once you have it memorized and you're used to doing the whole layout and all the song and dance and whatnot, you're going to be able to just get through, do consistent kills. I see anything from as low as 516 to about the 550 range as far as kill time is concerned. And Once you're done, you go ahead and get your loot, and at 500%, your loot should be anywhere from about 6 to 8 mil in commons alone. It's very nice for farming out, and with these kill speeds, I've been seeing anywhere from about 8 to 9 kills per hour, which by any means is not the fastest method for 500% farming. I believe range can go into the 430s and below to get some really fast kills per hour, but I find this to be a pretty relaxed method as far as just casually farming out some Zamorak and making a lot of GP. Now, one final note I want to make here is when going from circle 5 to circle 3 is that after you activate 5, that's when the chaos traps are going to happen. And you'll notice on the other pads, like when I was on 4, 2, 1, and 6, I didn't run off of the pad at all. But when I was on 5 and I charged it up, I believe I was standing either here. I was somewhere on this pad, and then as soon as he was getting close to charging up, you probably saw the bar that was above my head. I then ran off the pad because as soon as the pad activates, a trap will spawn. It's the little circles you'll kind of see scattered around, and those will stun you and hit you with magic for like 4k damage, I believe. And even through prayer, they're pretty annoying. So on circle or pad 5 and 3, once it's charged up, you have a small window of time to then just run off to the side, and you'll learn through trial and error pretty quickly about which tiles are okay to stand on and which ones aren't when the traps are active on the pad. One thing to keep in mind, it wasn't shown in this kill, but I've had it happen quite a few times, is a trap will activate right here in line with this pad that you're trying to get to. So you'll try and bladed dive surge, and you have to be very careful to not run into it, because on this tile here it will activate and then you'll be stunned, and then Zami will be able to get into attack range, and if he's throwing range hits on you while you're trying to clear a mage Zami trap, that is a lot of damage that you're going to be taking, and it's why I bring a decent amount of food. Because mistakes are going to be made, we're not robots here. And again, for pad 3 here, a trap will spawn. It'll spawn on all of them, but the only thing you have to worry about is getting to this one to activate it to then phase him. So once I barge in and then it starts charging up, I'll then look at my bar. At this point, it's now just an internal clock thing. I know when I have to go ahead and run off. You can either run to this direction or you can run over to this side. It's not going to make much of a difference. And the hardest thing to remember, I think, about this phase, which is phase 6 using pad 3, is after you get the adrenaline refund, is not just habitually spamming declaw. I still do it from time to time, but the last lang spec you used was over here on pad 1, so you've had all of this time to then go ahead and build up more lang spec stacks, or primordial ice stacks, I should say. And that mixed with a regular overpower and a punish, since he's on low HP. Punish will go ahead and do, I believe, anywhere from, I've seen it do up to almost 20k damage, but it usually does like a 12 to 13. It should be more than enough damage to go ahead and phase him while ending on high adrenaline. Now, if you don't end on high adrenaline, that's not the end of the world. On phase 7, you don't really need the blood flurry. I just use it because it keeps me in practice with all the other ones and building up muscle memory and whatnot. But the main thing is delaying the meteor strike a little bit on the demon, so that way it still carries over while you're building up on the runes, and potentially a little bit when you're doing your Zerk rotation on Zami. And to go over the P7 rotation one more time, I usually have meteor buff built up, and I'll build up on Zami if need be, or like run around spam abilities, stalling them to get adrenaline. But I will bladed dive to the first rune, press Berserk, and then use basic abilities on that one till it's dead, then surge as I need to get to the second rune, whichever one it happens to be, and use basic abilities there to then kill that one. Usually it takes about 2 to 3. And then as soon as you use that ability to kill the second room, it is Devotion, Reflect, and Barge. If you're too far away to barge at Zami, you can surge during the global cooldown of your Reflect and then press Barge, and you should get in there just nicely. Then it's Bleed Assault, hit your Disrupt Shield and Vitpot Bind around that time. Just make sure you do it before the first giant typeless bomb hit happens. Also, the Devotion will cover the melee hit, and that will only hit a 1. That's why I use it there. And then it's Chaos Roar, Declaw, Declaw. Most of the time that will kill it. Sometimes you might want to add in an Overpower. If you want, after the roared Declaw, you could go ahead and press Overpower and then use whatever you have left as far as Adren is concerned to go ahead and kill off Zammy, but I've even had phases where he just dies after the Chaos Roar to declaw. I don't even get my next ability off. Sometimes it takes all of my adrenaline. There is a little bit of improv with the P7 rotation that you get to play with, but that's just part of learning the boss. Anyways, I have rambled on long enough here. I'm gonna go ahead and close out the guide here. Thank you very much for watching. Your viewership is greatly appreciated. Have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon, nighttime, whatever it is, wherever you are, and I will see you next time for the next guide. Peace.